Hey guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations. I'm going to be continuing with some work on the Blazer today. Today I'm going to be starting my refurbishment of the entire braking system. I'm going to start with the master cylinder and also hopefully replace the anti-lock braking unit that is non-serviceable. So we've got a used one we're going to be popping in there. We're going to see what happens. This should be a quick and easy job today, so hopefully we can jump right in, knock it out fast and get started. Let's go. First step of the job is replacing the master cylinder. That's pretty straightforward. There's only a couple of bolts that hold it in and the brake lines that we have to remove. We could then take it out, pop our new one in, and hook everything back up. Before we do that, there's two things we need to take care of. Number one, I'm going to take your new master cylinder, compare it to the old one just to make sure they gave you the right part. I know parts stores never screw up, right? Number two, we have to bench bleed this before we put it in. That's going to require filling it with fluid, working all the air out of the system before we can put it on the car. We'll still have to bleed our brakes afterwards, but this will make the job a lot easier. So first things first, we'll do a quick compare. I'll walk you through the bench bleed procedure, then we'll go ahead and swap it out. All right, you can see we have our new master cylinder here in the vise. You don't need one, it just makes it a lot easier. Reach over here. Today we're going to be trying out one of these Dorman master cylinder bleeder kits. I've never used one before, but they seem great. So let's give it a shot. First step is going to be taking the plugs out to our new master cylinder. And then already found the right adapter pieces that screw in from the Dorman kit. These are going to screw right in to the holes for our lines. Hey, once you got your fittings in, I'm going to go ahead and pop the lid off. Then there's two lengths of hose. We're just going to attach to each end. Run them back inside the master cylinder. I'm going to fill the master cylinder with a new plane and brake fluid. You can already see some air bubbles starting to work their way out. And next, all we're going to do is take a Phillips head. We're going to push on this, work some fluid through the cylinder, through these hoses and back in. And we'll start to work the air out. Should take us about 15, 20, 25 pumps. Make sure as you do this, you keep both hoses submerged so you're not pulling in any air. Keep the fluid topped off in the cylinder. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but as I push, you can see the air bubbles coming through the lines. You just want to keep working it until you work all those air bubbles out. Until every time you push on it, about 4 or 5 pushes on this, you don't see any air in the lines at all. All right, so it took a good 30 presses on this to get all the air out of the system. About 15 or 18, it looked like it was good. I just kept going. I wanted to do 5 more just for good measure, and about 3 in, I started getting a whole lot more air coming out. So just be careful when you do this. If you think you have it, keep going because you probably don't. All right, so we're gonna leave that master cylinder alone for a minute. I've already cracked these lines on these OBS Chevy trucks. They are actually 9/16. Make sure you use a flare for the line fittings. Use a straight wrench. Yeah, you can get away with it, but over time it's not good. So like I said, I've already cracked these lines. We'll go ahead and remove these 2 bolts holding our master cylinder to the vacuum booster. I'm using a 16 millimeter. I suspect it's actually standard size, but I'm living in a metric world right now, so I'm just gonna go ahead with this. It seems to work fine. All right, we got our 2 bolts off. We got our lines cracked. Now to make things a little easier, I'm just gonna suck all this remaining brake fluid out of the cylinder. Just be careful because it will take off paint. So you want to make sure you're not splashing it around. All right, now at this point, we got our bolts loose for this. We got our lines loose for the master cylinder. If I was just replacing the master cylinder, all I would do is take these off, remove these 2 bolts, and slide it right out. However, in this case, I'm also going to replacing the ABS unit down here. So we're going to keep going. We're going to replace some of the lines in between and remove this whole unit as well. All right, so I went ahead and removed all the lines leading to our Kelsey Hayes non-serviceable ABS pump and unit. I've also disconnected all the electrical connectors, so we'll go ahead and take that out and we'll remove our master cylinder and replace everything. Now next, since our new used one comes with a bracket, we're just going to remove these 4 bolts, take this old one out. We've got all the lines marked. I marked some of the lines on the new one because you don't want to mix these up, so make sure you figure out some way to keep them in order. There we go. We're just going to give everything a quick wipe down under here. Get rid of 30 years of dirt as best we can. So I decided to take things one step further. I'm going to go ahead and replace these 4 lines, 1, 2, run into our proportioning valve, and then 3, 4 that run into our ABS pump. So I'm just going to take all this out as one piece while I have everything out and switch everything out. Let's go ahead and slide this guy out. There we go. Master cylinder's out. Alright, so after I took the master cylinder out, went ahead and cleaned up the proportioning valve and got a set of new lines from inline tube. So I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm going to do that one off camera. But right now we got our proportioning valve back in. We got some new lines hooked up, so we're ready to put in our master cylinder. We got our freshly bled master cylinder. It's just going to slide right on. Be as careful as you can not to spill any fluid. And it'll pop right in. There we go. Just going to put our bolts on, just finger tight, just to keep this thing from sliding around. Alright, now that we've got our master cylinder in, I haven't torqued the bolts down to spec yet, but I will. We're going to go ahead and just remove our hoses that we use for our bench bleeding and hook up our lines. We've got our new ABS pump bolted in. Got a couple of new lines going from the proportioning valve to the master cylinder and from the valve to the ABS unit. Once I've done this, I'm not really going to reattach and bleed too much because I'm going to off camera replace the rest of these brake lines. So let's get them hooked up and keep moving. All right, now that we have our new pump in, bolted down, our lines reattached, all that's left to do is torque these master cylinder bolts down to the torque they need to be. And for now, we're just going to top off the brake fluid and let it sit overnight. Tomorrow, I'm going to continue working. So we're going to torque our master cylinder mounting bolts down to 20 foot-pounds. To the other side. So that's it. We got our mounting bolts torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. We changed out our master cylinder. We got a new used ABS pump. We also changed out the brake lines from the master cylinder to the proportioning valve and from the proportioning valve into the ABS pump. So in the meantime this week I'll be changing out the rest of these brake lines. This way everything's new. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because next week I'm going to show you the procedure for bleeding this whole system out. It's a very specific procedure. There's a couple of extra steps you have to incorporate with this ABS system in here. These trucks have a reputation for having a spongy brake pedal, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the systems are being improperly bled. So make sure you check that out, and I'll see you next week.